Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Let's Be Bold. I just moved into a new place a couple weeks ago, super exciting. That's why I'm in this really weird space. It's not fully set up yet. And marking the start of that journey, I am starting a new series called Conversations, and today's topic is parenting your parent. Okay, so my first guest is Allie. I've talked about her a lot, probably not by name, and I think part of that is because I don't necessarily have people's permission to say their name on my podcast. But I've talked about Allie a lot, and she's visiting me from Dallas, and so I just scooped her up. I was like, we're recording! So, first question that I want to ask her is, so how do you feel like your relationships with your parents has changed as you've entered adulthood?
Yeah, so it's really fun to have a different relationship with my parents, going from child-parent relationship to more of a friendship. So it's been fun to evolve and have my parents as one of my closest friends and my parents.
Yeah, how does that work though? Like, I imagine that there are times where you're like, I'm calling you as, like, because I need you to be a parent, not to be your friend.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's kind of we need a healthy balance between, being friends and the amount of time that I spend with my parents versus my friends, and then also encouraging them to have friends and spend time with their friends and I'm not their only friend. So that's been interesting because they spent so much time with me growing up, going to my soccer games and stuff, and so I really did fill up a lot of time that they now have, and they're like, oh, but you're still here and around and you can still fill that time up. But I'm like, no, go.
Yeah, I guess that's really different from you because you live in the same area relatively as your parents, and I'm like 800 plus miles from mine, so they don't call me up like, what are you doing? So it's really funny though, because if I call my parents, they're like, is something up? What's up? And I'm like, no, I just wanted to talk. And it sounds like you have the reverse of your parents are calling you, and you're like, what's up? And they're like, I just want to talk.
Yeah, like, I kind of do that to them too, and then I'm kind of pushed back sometimes where I'm like, okay, go. And then I'm like, but wait, come back.
Like, you have to schedule time with your parents in the same way as your friends. Do you?
I really do. Like, my life has to be scheduled because it is so busy. So my parents get Wednesday nights, my boyfriend gets Tuesday nights, my community group gets Sunday nights. So.
Oh, I get Wednesday nights too.
Yeah, you get Wednesday nights. So it really is very scheduled.
Yeah, that's definitely a good balance. I feel like the thing that I have found that's interesting about being an adult and relationships with my parents, especially too, like, realizing that they probably did spend a lot of time investing in me and my sisters that's like now free, right? And even more so because it's like I'm not even there. They can't just pop by. Is encouraging, especially with my mom, like encouraging her to reach out and engage in hobbies. So it's probably a few months ago now, she hit me up. Well, she hit up the group chat. She hit up the family group chat, and she was like, I want to go bowling. And first of all, I was like, why am I even in this group chat? Like, I can't go bowling with you.
Yeah.
I'm in Fort Collins. And so, but that was something that she expressed interest in. And so I probably called her later that day or later in the week. I don't remember the timeline specifically. And I was like, just go bowling. Like, I don't understand. And I'm the kind of person who, like, I will go to a restaurant by myself or like go for a walk. I've gone on hikes by myself. I'm just in the car going. And so that is a part of my rhythm as an adult. And part of that probably came from like moving to an area where I knew very few people. So it was like I couldn't necessarily wait around for someone to be available. Like, I had to go and do those things. And so I was like, well, why don't you join a bowling league? And she was like, no. And I was like, I don't understand, why not? And the statement that she made to me was, you know that I'm not good at like meeting people. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, the people are already there. You just sign up for the bowling league, and then other people who are also signed up will be there. And so you just meet people because you're doing the activity. She wasn't feeling that. And so eventually she did make her way. She didn't sign up for a bowling league, but she did make her way. She called me one day. This is actually a couple weeks ago. And she was like, I went bowling. And I was like, good for you. Did you go by yourself? And so it's interesting because growing up, receiving so much encouragement from my parents of like, yeah, you want to be a cheerleader? Do that. You want to volunteer at the library? Do that. I was a weird kid. You know, or they would have to call me because I was out and about somewhere doing a hobby. Probably I was in the yearbook room. My mom was like, are you going to come home? To now me being the one to encourage them to go out and do that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting encouraging your parents in an adult space.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the same thing with my parents, but my aunt is my parents' age, obviously. And just like being an adult and being able to do activities with her and encourage her to do activities and like be able to suggest things. And I don't know, because she doesn't have as many hobbies either, and she has some things that she wants to do. So it's fun to be like, oh yeah, I can do that with you if you want me to. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mom has gotten into jewelry making. She was always a crafter. You guys should see the rest of this room. It's covered in like ribbons and and paints and everything. And anyway, so she's been making bracelets, and she'll like send me Snapchats, or she's also been painting more too. And I'm over here like, you should like sell these. You should do like an Etsy shop. Or she'll be like, oh, I was somewhere and someone asked me where I got my bracelet from, and I was like, oh, I made it. And I was like, see, like, you can do this. My mom can she can be kind of reserved though. So yeah, so it's just funny engaging with them in that space. And I think as far as conversations with my dad, and the two of us are big talkers, and he has been on this journey of getting his master's program, and I like to remind him that I got my master's first. And so he'll talk about like how his school is going. He'll talk about how his paper was, or, just the process of getting his master's degree. And I'm like, that's great, and he'll talk to me about how his PhD journey is going. And I'm over here like, I called to talk about something else. And it's great hearing him talk about that. And we share an interest in academia. But I'll be like, this is, I call, and all of a sudden he's talking about his day, and he's talking about people he's talked to, and I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
This is cool. So, talk to me about what encouragement for to your parents has looked like as far as encouraging them to engage in their own communities.
Their own communities?
Yeah,
or
yeah,
just
yeah. Or expanding their communities. As far as like a friend space.
Part of it is like, I want to be busy with my friends on the weekends, and so in order to do that, I have to encourage my parents to also do the same and hang out with themselves, or hang out with family or friends, or just like build other relationships that aren't just between them and me. So I think that's how I try to encourage them.
Do they push back?
Not too much.
Okay.
I mean, my mom's not going to go and hang out with people necessarily, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Actually, it has been kind of fun to see my dad. I think he started slowly realizing it, and so he really has reconnected with like friends from college. One of his friends actually moved from Colorado to Texas.
Wow.
And so that's actually been really fun for him, because having her in the same town, they have similar hobbies. They like to go bike riding, and so she'll come over and hang out with my parents, and they'll do like a whole day thing, which is fun to see them like just actually have fun once in a while, because it doesn't happen very often. And then he has another friend who lives in the West Coast, and they didn't talk for like years, and then all of a sudden like they talk all the time. And one of his sons actually comes to Dallas a lot, and he'll hang out with my dad, which is super weird, but it's funny. But he's made some random relationships and then reconnected with a lot of people, so he is kind of branching out more, which is good.
Oh, that's exciting. I imagine, I mean, I don't know, and you don't know, because we're in this place where, we met in college, and that was 10 years ago now. Yeah. But we're still in this place of, we have, single lives in the sense of, we're not married.
Yeah.
And we don't have kids, and so we're still just responsible for ourselves. And so we maybe have more capacity to engage in our friendships. I don't know. I'm not on the other side of that. But I imagine that for my parents and for your parents, there was this maybe realization of wow, I only have so much time, and so it's I can spend time with my kids or my spouse or with friends, and then friends have moved into different spaces of their lives, and then it sounds like for your parents, on the other side of that, it's wow, we're kid free again. And we can do stuff again.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I like to think that we'd be intentional to not end up in spaces where it's oh, I don't know, I haven't seen Allie in 5 years, that'd be terrible.
Yeah.
Which I don't think it'll happen like that, because when I go home to Dallas, I'm always intentional about spending time with Allie, and my parents are we only get you for 3 days and you're going to go hang out with Allie? And I'm absolutely. I got to maintain all of my relationships. I can't just come home and chill on the couch and hang out with you guys. So it's definitely, I think that even in my own life, finding that balance between when I'm visiting friends and then also making sure that I visit my fairly large family, not the largest, but there's a lot of people that I got to see when I'm back home.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I think for me growing up, because I was homeschooled and my dad was very intentional about me having friendships and relationships, just because, there's a lot of people doubting that this would actually work for me and my brother. So my dad was very intentional about me having friendships and having friends over and stuff like that, that whenever I do push back, he's more understanding, because he knows, that's kind of how I grew up anyways, is having, putting a pretty high value on friends outside of my family. Mm-hmm. So I think that is kind of helpful, that he knows that, this is kind of how I grew up, and this is how we've always lived our life. So.
Yeah. Your dad is I know that I put this plan into motion, but now I am rethinking my decisions.
Yep.
Why did I do this? I imagine that my parents have a similar aspect of we know that we encouraged Monica, but now she's all the way out there, and why did we do that? How do we get her back? Yeah.
I think I see that same thing with my parents. I'm you told me to be independent. You literally ingrained this into my minds.
Yes. So it's definitely interesting, realizing the role switching, not necessarily of now I'm parenting my parent, which innately, I'm obviously not I'm not disciplining them, right? Yeah. I'm not giving them rules to follow, but the sense of encouraging, hey, you should try boundaries. That's good. Yeah. Or you should try naming and communicating your needs, or just things that I've learned in my adult life that are a little different. My parents got married really young, and I'm approaching 30 and I'm not married, and so I've gotten to experience a lot of adulthood and singleness that they didn't get to, and I'm that you can just go and do the things, right? You don't have to wait for things. So there's pros and cons to that.
Yeah.
All right, do you have any final thoughts or reflections about this weird space of being a 20-something and being wait a minute, this is not what I was expecting?
I think it's actually, even though there are some awkwardness to being friends with your parents, or, I think it is really fun to have good relationships with your parents, and it's kind of a fun season to actually see them as friends and have deep conversations with them. And, me and my parents don't always agree, but we have an understanding, because they've been around for my whole entire life. So, there's this obviously really deep rooted love. And so those conversations and the hard conversations are actually, very impactful, I guess. So.
Yeah. I think that we are both pretty well differentiated, to use a therapist word, which, for those of you who don't know, differentiation happens when you become more of an independent person with your own thoughts and ideas versus picking up 100% of the thoughts and values from your parents. We would call that more enmeshed. And so our parents did a great job of developing us as like, you are an Allie thinker and I am a Demonica thinker, versus like, you're just your parents again. Maybe in looks. A lot of people tell me I look just like my mom. So
yeah.
All right. Well, I appreciate you jumping on here. I know that this is like a fun thing that I get to do, and then I send you the videos, and so it's cool that you're a part of it now.
Yeah.
And so I would like to hear your experience when this comes out, of like, what's it like to watch yourself?
I don't want to.
No, but it's good. Just like, you could just watch me like you
I will.
always do.
I will still watch it, but I feel like it's going to be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, until next time, you guys go out and be bold. And I do like to close out with a challenge. And so I would challenge you to spend some time thinking about what your dynamic is with your parent, whether you feel like you have good boundaries, whether you feel like you have poor boundaries. And I know that it's really hard if you do feel like you have poor boundaries and you start putting boundaries in place and then your parents are like, what are you doing? You ain't never did this before. But it's good for personal growth. And I would encourage you even to have a conversation with your parents about what it's been like to be in adult space with them. All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.